Welcome to the Girl Talk Mental Health. Girl Talk Mental Health dares to go where others won't. We unpack the hard truths about mental health, dissect trending topics, and challenge the stereotypes and stigmas holding us back. From navigating the 6 dimensions of wellness to redefining social norms, this is more than a discussion. It's a revolution in how we care for our minds and souls. Ready for bold, honest conversations that spark change? Let's dive in. It's time for real talk with real impact.
He was everyone's rock, the protector, the provider, the fixer, but behind his quiet strength was a silent battle, a mental collapse he never saw coming. Does this sound like you or the man in your life? In this powerful Girl Talk Mental Health episode, in June, we are featuring men's mental health. We're lifting the veil on the emotional weight men carry in silence. We have our special guest, Mr. Terry Tucker. He's going to unpack the hidden wounds of high performing men, emotional suppression, and the cultural conditioning that teaches men to man up rather than to speak up. So, welcome our special guest, Mr. Terry Tucker. Welcome. Tell the audience some great things about you so they'll know who you are today.
Sure. Well, first of all, Virginia, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to being with you today. A little bit about me. Grew up on the south side of Chicago. I'm the oldest of 3 boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall and actually went to college on a basketball scholarship despite having 3 knee surgeries in high school. After college, I'm really going to date myself now, but this was long before the internet was available to help people find employment. So I moved home to find a job. The good news was I found that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. After Wendy's, I actually went to work for the hospital that cared for my father and my grandmother. I thought they did such a great job. I wanted to be part of that. And then at 37, made the major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And part of what I did during my law enforcement career was I was a SWAT hostage negotiator. After that, started a school security consulting business, coached girls high school basketball, but for the last 13 years now have been battling a rare form of cancer, a rare form of melanoma. And then I guess just finally, my wife and I have been married for 32 years. We have 1 child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is an officer in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Oh, okay. That's some awesome achievements and everything going on. So kudos to you. We have a great person in front of us today, and we're going to be impactful. You're going to be impactful. So are you ready for some impact?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what signs, because you have a great story. So what signs were you ignoring that in hindsight were clear indicators that you had some type of mental health collapse or some things you need to do for your mental health?
I think I've always wanted to be the best in my life, whatever I did. I mean, it didn't matter. My first job was cleaning up the back room of a bakery when I was a little kid, but I wanted to be able to eat off the floor of that back room where those bakers made everything. And it's something I learned from my father. My father died of end stage breast cancer in his early 50s. And my dad was from the generation that men didn't go to the doctors. Men, I don't ever remember my father at all going to a doctor when he had the cold or a flu or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It killed him because he didn't go to the doctor and he had breast cancer and he didn't catch it early enough and it killed him. And I learned early in that journey that I couldn't be that stoic person that ignored my health issues and things like that I needed you know what? Something's wrong. I've got to go to the doctor. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah, we don't want to do it. But we all know that if we get diseases early, if we detect them early, we have a much better chance of either curing them or being able to find a way to live with them instead of, well, it's too late. There's nothing more medical science can do for you. So I had to change kind of the beliefs that my father had taught me into more beliefs that were better, not only for my physical health, but also for my mental well being as well.
That's a great story. So, why do you think so many men struggle with admitting that they're not okay, and even to themselves?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I saw this as a police officer. I mean, there was sort of that, police officers, whether they're men or women, whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're Hispanic, it doesn't matter. We see things that other people shouldn't that people shouldn't see. We see man's inhumanity to man. We see helplessness and hopelessness. And we're supposed to just kind of bury that. We're supposed to just kind of, push that down in our being. And it festers. It sits down there and it accumulates. And that's why I think law enforcement officers have a higher propensity for alcohol abuse or drug abuse or for domestic violence or for divorce. And so I think it's one of those things where it's a societal thing. We're supposed to be a certain way. But Virginia, one of the things I learned being a hostage negotiator is that when we're scared, when we're nervous, when we're anxious, the best thing to do is not bury those things. The best thing to do is call them out. Is to be able to say, yeah, I've got this treatment coming up for my cancer. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm worried about it because burying it gives it power. Putting it out there in front of you allows you to confront it, allows you to deal with it, allows you to see it, and not it's not something that's scary that is in the depths of your soul. No, it's right in front of you, and something that's in front of you, you can deal with.
Now, tell us this, Terry. Now, as a hostage negotiator, what are some tips that you learned or some skills you learned from your job that you learned to negotiate in your personal life?
Yeah, that's a great question. We all negotiate, whether we believe it or not. We're all negotiating or selling ourselves in some way. And I'll give you a few things I learned. One of the things I learned was a formula of how we as human beings communicate with each other. And that formula was 73855. So 7% of how we communicate a message to another person are the words that we use. And think how many times you've been, oh, I wish I hadn't have said that, or I wish I would have said that a different way. That's only 7% of how that message comes across. 38% is the tone of voice that you use. Are you really excited and you're talking like this and you can't wait to tell the person? Or are you kind of in the Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, oh, things are terrible. It's never going to work. What tone of voice are you using? That's 38%. And then 55%, so more than half of how a message comes across, is our body language and our facial expressions. And we were given that formula because if we were negotiating with somebody that had a gun and was barricaded in a room, we were not in the room with that person. That wouldn't have been safe for us. So we didn't have the luxury of that 55% of saying something to another person and seeing them kind of roll their eyes like, oh, what an idiot. I can't believe Terry said that to me. So we had to get good, certainly based on what people were saying to us, but also what they weren't saying and how they were saying it. And I'll give you just two quick things of how we did that. A lot of times we'd get on scene and have no idea why we were there. So it was using what we call tactical empathy. I think today you can get rid of the word tactical and just talk about empathy. And empathy is help me to understand what's going on, where you're coming from, why we're here, whatever the situation was. And again, the important word there is understand. I mean, if I was negotiating with somebody that just murdered three people, I wasn't going to agree that what they did was right, but it was the understanding because understanding leads to trust and trust leads us to getting you out safely. And the last thing I'll say about this is this. We use how and what questions. We stayed away from why questions. Because think about your life growing up. You would do something stupid and your parents are like, why did you do that? Why questions sound accusatory. So I
Mhm.
can get to the same thing. Virginia, why did you wear that top today? Oh, wait a minute. Does Terry not like the top that I'm wearing? I can get to the same answer by saying, hey, Virginia, what made you decide to wear that today? It's a softer question. It lands differently. And how and what questions build trust? Why questions get you to the point where does he not like what I'm doing? Is he being accusatory? Those are some of the things I learned as a negotiator.
So, real quick, what would be one question that a man would ask themselves to help them pivot out of that space where they feel like they have to be that rock and they can't be vulnerable enough to have their wellness checked and taken care of?
What are you doing? What is making you do what you do? What is making you think the way you think? That it's putting that out there again. What's making you do this? And it forces you to address the underlying cause. Well, you know what? My dad died of cancer, and so I might have cancer, so I'm kind of scared of that. Oh, okay, that's a reason. Now you've got a reason. Now you can develop a solution around that reason. If you just deny it, it's fine. It's going to go away. I don't have to deal with it. Whether it's something physical or whether it's something emotional or mental, that's never a good solution. Finding those things and asking yourself the tough questions. What questions? How questions? How can I go about getting to be a better husband, father, writer,
Mhm.
musician, whatever it ends up being? How can I do that? How
Mhm.
questions are very powerful. They in a lot of ways generate their own solutions. It was a question that we would ask as negotiators. Somebody would say something to us, and we would say, "Well, how am I supposed to do that? What does that do?" That throws the ball back into their court, and it gets them to start thinking about how they can help me get them out safely. And they don't even realize I've done that. I've just thrown the ball back into their court. Throw the ball back into your court. How am I supposed to do that? Is a great question.
Right. It's kind of like setting goals and then making sure you have the tools, which is your physical health and mental health and all of those other healthy areas to help you to accomplish that goal, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. So we halfway through the show. So let's have a quick commercial because you've been so impactful. We're gonna give the people time to soak this good knowledge in. The men, especially, it's Men's Mental Health Month, and we're trying to help them to pivot to that next level and know that they are not alone. So let's have this quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
You weren't meant to break, you were set apart. What if your deepest pain was the birthplace of your greatest purpose? Meet Gingerbread, a child caught in the chaos of her mother's depression and suicide attempts. She never asked for trauma, shame, or to feel invisible, but she found something greater. Set Apart, the journey to find hope through loneliness, shame, and death is more than a book. It's the breakthrough you didn't know you needed. If you've ever said, "I'm fine," when you were falling apart. If you've ever thought, "This story isn't for me," it is. Don't let fear, excuses, or busyness rob you of healing. This book will shatter the silence, stir your soul, and remind you, you were never forgotten. You were set apart. Set Apart, the journey to find hope in times of shame, loneliness, and death, by author Virginia Dale Manning. Available now, because hope can't wait.
All right, we are back with Mr. Terry Tucker. If you missed the first half of his story where he's telling you so many inspirational tips, how he used his tactical negotiator skills in his own personal life, hey, you missed some nuggets and you need to go back and watch. You need to connect with him and you need to find out what you need to do, men in our lives, to get yourself to that next level of success and health and just all the way around wellness in your life. So let's get to our next segment. So, what would you say to the men who are watching today, who is the rock but secretly falling apart?
I would say that nobody is successful in anything they do, whether it's being a father, whether it's being a husband, whether it's being in business or whatever you do, in a vacuum. We need each other. If COVID taught us anything, it's how much we need each other. You saw
Mhm.
during COVID when we were isolated, alcoholism rates went up, drug abuse rates went up, domestic violence rates went up. We are better together than we are separately. And we've all heard that we're a product of the people we hang around with the most. So I would say, who are you hanging around with? Who are those people that you can lean on? I mean, even a clump of rocks, those rocks are leaning on each other. So we need that support system. None of us are that strong. None of us are that tough, despite the fact that we'd like to think we are. Who are the people you're leaning on? And again, if you're the rock and you're having problems, you need to call those problems out. You need to bring them out you need to bring them to the surface and see them for what they are, because most problems contain their own solution. So find out what those problems are if you're that rock. And I get it. I like to think I'm the rock of my family as well. But there are times when we need to lean on our children. We need to lean on our spouse, our significant other, whoever, our parents, whoever that, our friends. Who are the people you're hanging with the most? Find good people, put them in your life, and do things together, because now you've got a support system, and we all need a support system.
I'm gonna ask you a question, a little personal question, but just because with your story can relate to so many men who don't even realize some of the things that they need to do. Now you were diagnosed with, you said it's a cancer,
Correct.
right? So before you had your diagnosis, did you struggle with um some of the symptoms? Like sometimes we know, you know, we have something going on and we don't go get it checked or whatever, right? That's everybody. But did you ever have a situation like that throughout your health journey?
Sure. So I had a callus. My cancer started on the bottom of my foot, and at the time, I was a girls' high school basketball coach when we were living in Texas, and I didn't ignore it for an extended period of time, but there was a couple weeks that went by that I'm like, oh, this will heal, take care of itself. Well, after it didn't, and I learned this from my father, I'm like, I'm not waiting. I made an appointment went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine, and he takes an X-ray and he says, Terry, I think you got a cyst in there and I can cut it out. And Virginia, he did. He cut it out, showed it to me, a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it. No dark spots, no blood, nothing that gave either one of us concern. But 2 weeks later, I get that call from him, and he tells me I have this incredibly rare and deadly form of melanoma, and that more than likely I'm going to be dead in 2 years.
Mm.
So I went from thinking I had a little callus break open on the bottom of my foot to I have this incredibly deadly form of cancer. And that shifted my entire perspective on my life.
And you got to detect it a little early too, so that helped a lot in your
Absolutely.
recovery journey, which is a
Yeah.
key too. The sooner you get things taken care of and detected, the better your outcome is to, get it taken care of in a healthy way. So I
Yeah.
love it. So now we're at my favorite part, which is the speaker spotlight question. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what's one mindset shift or action step you believe transform how we approach mental health and wellness in our daily lives?
That's an amazing question. I love that. I'm going to give you two, if you don't mind. Um, the first one is this. It's from it's a line, a quote from a book called "Farewell to Arms," written by a man by the name of Ernest Hemingway. And the book is fiction, but it's a semi-autobiographical account of Hemingway's time as an ambulance driver for the Italian army during World War One. And the quote is this: "Life breaks everyone, and afterward, many are stronger at the broken places." So
That's
life
good.
is going to beat you to your knees at some point. And if you can keep going, if you can keep moving forward through all that adversity, you will come out the other end a stronger human being. Just like if you were to break your arm and the doctor would set it and put it in a cast, when that bone heals, it will be stronger at the area where it was broken than it will be in the rest of the arm. So I think that's a great metaphor for life. Understand we're going to be beaten to our knees, but also understand that if we keep going, we can come out a stronger human being. And the last thing I'll say is this, and this I think is incredibly important, and I wish I would have learned this earlier in my life. It's more important who you work with and who you work for than is the work that you do. Find
Relationships.
people that care about you, find people that are willing to invest in you, find people that want to see you succeed, hitch your wagon to those people, and climb your mountains together.
Oh, you are so wise. That's great. Those relationship building skills right there. Relationships 101.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell the audience a little bit about how they can connect with you and if you have some type of special offer that they can get from you today.
Sure. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is I have a blog slash website called Motivational Check. So you can reach out to me at motivationalcheck.com. And if you send me your email, I will send you a PDF copy of my book, Sustainable Excellence.
Ooh, that sounds good. Thank you. So thank you all for tuning into Girl Talk Mental Health this month of June. Of course, we're tuning the spotlight on men and their mental health. And it's because often they're the rocks, the ones we lean on, the ones who don't break. But what happens when they do, right? Like you said, those relationships to, hold them up and to lean on, because everyone needs someone to lean on every now and then. So you have any closing remarks or anything you'd like to share with the audience before we close it up?
I guess if you don't mind, I'll tell you a final story. So I've always been a big fan of Westerns growing up. My mom and dad used to let me stay up late and watch Gunsmoke and Bonanza and Wild
Mhm.
Wild West. And I'm sure your younger audience is like, I've never heard of those shows. They're old, I know, because I'm old. 1993, the movie Tombstone came out, and it was a
Mm.
huge blockbuster. Starred Val Kilmer as a man by the name of John Doc Holliday, and Kurt Russell as a man by the name of Wyatt Earp. Now, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were two living, breathing human beings who actually walked on the face of the earth, not made up actors just from the movie. Now, Doc was called Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but pretty much Doc Holliday was a gunslinger and a card shark. And Wyatt Earp had been some form of a lawman his entire life. And somehow these two men from entirely opposite backgrounds come together and form this very close friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc Holliday is dying at a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from where I live. And the real Doc Holliday actually died in that cemetery or in that hospital. He's buried in the Glenwood Springs Cemetery. And Wyatt, at this point in his life, is destitute. He has no money, he has no job, he has no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to play cards with Doc, and the two men pass the time that way. And then this almost last scene in the movie, they're talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was younger, but she joined a convent over the affair. But she's all that I ever wanted. And then he looks at Wyatt and he says, What about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt kind of nonchalantly says, I just want to lead a normal life. And
Mm.
he looks at him and says, There's no normal, there's just life. And get on with living yours. There's people out there listening to us that are thinking, well, when this happens, I'll have a normal life. But when that occurs, I'll have a significant life. But when this happens, I'll be in some way important. What I would like to leave you with is this. Don't wait. Don't wait for life to come to you. Get out there, find the reason you were put on the face of this earth, use your unique gifts and talents, and live that reason. Because if you do at the end of your life, I'm going to promise you two things. Number one, you're going to have a whole lot more peace in your heart. And number two, you're going to be a whole lot happier.
That is some great nuggets. Look, if you didn't get anything else out of this show today, you for sure should have got something out of that Tombstone story. And I love that movie. That was a good movie. I never looked at it from that perspective. See that how we have these different perspectives?
Yes.
I love Girl Talk Mental Health because that's what we're about, these different perspectives, diverse viewpoints about how you can get your mental health taken care of, and not just from, a shelter perspective, from a diverse perspective from every walk of life. And so if this conversation moved you, please share it with someone who needs it. Watch next week for more honest conversations, breakthrough tools, and real help. And don't forget to tune in next week where we're diving more into more men's mental health awareness, more mental health impact for you and your family so that you can live a whole, healthy, well lifestyle to your next level of success. So see you all next week. Bye bye.
Thank you for joining us for Girl Talk Mental Health. Remember, your mental health is your wealth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to at Virginia Del Manning.